Good afternoon and good morning, depending on which time zone you are in. We are thankful that you have hopped on and joined us for this webinar. My name is Andy Johns. I am the VP of Marketing with Pioneer Utility Resources and WordSouth.
My name is Jonathan Farmer. I'm the Director of Member Solutions with Pioneer.
Excellent. And we are glad that you guys are here. Now, we've got about 45 minutes worth of great content to share with you guys. Before we get going too much, I did want to acknowledge that our Communicator of the Year is on the call today, Teresa Phillips. Much deserved, well-deserved. Congratulations. Glad to have you on here. I had the privilege to meet Teresa in real life out at the Nick in Portland. And so I was happy to see that she won that award just, I think, about 2 weeks back. And so we're congratulations there as well. Like I said, we are thankful that y'all are on here. And as we were building this presentation, we were feeling very thankful and really had like the Thanksgiving thoughts running through our heads. And that was kind of the theme that we were working on for some of this. So I'd like to apologize for some of these jokes in advance. Maybe I should just go ahead and apologize for all the jokes in advance. But we're happy to be sharing with you guys today. So as many of you know, Pioneer is a communications cooperative. We work with utilities across the country to help them with all of their work. You might say that we're out there packing their communications plans full of good stuffing, and we are going to share some of that with you guys today.
Yeah, we want to do our best to help make you all look good. That's what I enjoy about this job, is that we're here just to make you all look good. So talking about planning, something that's not necessarily at the forefront of our favorite activities, but it's a necessary one. I mean, it's fall still. We're planning for 2022, so the holidays. Why invest time now in creating a communications strategy? And we do hope it is a strategy, but it's one that's worth it. Planning ahead, like for example, maybe if you're going to plan what to wear to your Thanksgiving dinner, hope that it's a vest. I know Andy's usually in a vest. It's his big thing. I thought for sure I'd get him in a vest today, but he didn't. That's all right. I wore one in your honor.
I appreciate that. So most of the folks on the call are probably deep in the throes of budget planning for 2022. At Pioneer, we're deep in the meat and potatoes of 2022 content planning. We really feel like if you do a lot of work ahead of time on the planning for the next year, when it comes to strategic communications, digital advertising, all the different pieces, that when you get to next year, it's really just all gravy because you've got it all planned out. So the main areas we're going to cover today are why it's important, what it means to do planning, and give you some tips on how to do it. I hope you leave the session, you smiled a few times maybe, or groaned a few times at the jokes. But more importantly, that you head back to work motivated and think a little bit more about how strong communications planning will help you serve your members and customers even better.
Yeah, so it's not a favorite thing to do, as I mentioned, but it is something that helps us to be able to be more creative, more thoughtful, be more intentional in what we do. It's something that helps us not to do just good work, but to do great work. Not just for our utilities, but also to be involved more in the communities that we serve. I know that's something that I enjoyed when I was working at a co-op on the other side of things at a utility, was that involvement with the community. And so if I could have some time to be able to do that, that I know made folks happy, not just my boss, but also the folks that we serve. So hopefully it'll help you to be more outstanding in your field. My last name is Farmer, so I'd probably use that joke, outstanding in your field, way more than I should. But for example, here, if we flip over the next slide, we're going to be looking at safe passwords, right? Every once in a while this happens. We'll get some folks who are, there's scams and stuff going on. We want to remind people of scams or using safe passwords. So let's take this for example. If you just rushed to put something out there, it's on your checklist. I'm going to toss this out there. This isn't terrible, right? Gets the point across. Use safe passwords. There's a computer up there, very artistic sort of a post there, but it's pretty boring. It doesn't capture. They're just going to scroll right past it. doesn't capture the imagination very much. It also, is just sort of in one spot, and that's kind of what it does for us if we procrastinate and just kind of toss something up there. It's not going to allow us to be very creative. If we had time, we could create something a little bit more interesting, like this, which is not really sure if we went with a Libra or a Zebra font. Not sure which one it went there, but
it was hotly debated.
I like a Libra myself. So you come up with something like this, a Libra, right? This is visually interesting, wonderfully weird. It's going to be something that sticks with people more. They're going to remember this. They're going to chuckle. They might share it with their friends even, because it's something that's interesting. Which one are people going to remember more? Obviously, it's the Zebra font. It's going to have a positive influence, not just on them, maybe getting them to create new passwords, but to also create some warm, fuzzy feelings around your utility that you're creative and doing quality work. And that's why we plan, so we can focus on creating campaigns that are interesting to our utility members. But
and Jonathan liked this ad so much, he actually changed all of his online passwords to be Zebra font. So wait, was I not supposed to share that? I wasn't supposed to share that part? Oh, no. My bad. My bad. It's not like we're going to throw this up on YouTube afterwards or anything. So.
Well, instead of having just the one piece here, if you really have time to plan, like you are all going to shortly after this session here, you'd be able to create more collateral with not just the one, social media post. But you'd be able to easily convert this into something that can go several other places. You can see on here, there's social media posts, but also flyers, bill inserts. Down at the bottom there's like a online payment portal. Smart hub type of a banner that you can create, all with the one idea. The one idea, went really, really far here. And that multi-channel planning is what we want to get towards, and something that at the end we'll have some resources to help you with that sort of multi-channel planning. But these are things that would allow you to have them be more, have them be sticky, which gets people coming back, interested in what you're posting, not just scrolling past everything that the utility does because it's boring and not connecting to them. It's something that allows them to be more connected to you. Like I said, stickier, hopefully something that sticks to their brain, like the candied yams do to grandma's dentures. Sticky. I love candied yams. No?
I'm a little concerned that this webinar is going to leave a bad taste in everybody's mouth, but here we go. All right, so he's absolutely right. With a little extra effort, you can take a graphic that you create on one platform and maximize that by using it in other spots. Here's an example, and we'll look at this one again in a minute. But if you take the time to create one piece, or if you have an agency create a piece for you, go ahead and see where else you can use that same piece. Number one, it's recognition with the consumers or the members, the customers, subscribers, whatever term you use for your folks. It's recognition there, but it also just takes the work that you're already doing and helps it go a lot further. For instance, this is a real life example that one of the folks on our teams saw in her co-op's monthly newsletter that came out. Really nice write-up about an apprentice lineman at their co-op. And after seeing that, she sprung into action and did the social media post for them as well on 2 different social media platforms, telling the same story, using the same photos, but just reaching folks in different ways with a multi-channel approach there. We like to call things like this cat content, because and that's not a Thanksgiving joke, that's just because it has 9 lives, that once you create a piece of content, the more lives you can give it in different spots, the better it'll be, both for you and for them. I like this one all the way back from 1859, and 1859, so everything is I don't know, we would probably say people today, but the first time a man sees an advertisement, he takes no notice of it. The second time he looks at the name, the third time he looks at the price, the fourth time he reads it, the fifth time he speaks of it to his wife, and the 6th time he buys. And while that is has been around a long time. I think the key stands, the key takeaway still stands today, that the more and more you're going to need. I always say, when you feel like you've communicated enough, keep going, because there are always going to be folks. And Jonathan, I know that you've been there. I'm sure some of the folks on the phone call have been, where you do all of these different channels about something that you've got going on, and you still hear somebody say, "Oh, I hadn't heard about that." Like, how can you possibly not hear about it? But repetition is the key, whether you're talking about signing up for a program that you're offering, upgrades, new services that are available, mobile app, whatever it is. More and more, hit them as many times as you can. So there, in the marketing rule of 6 from 1859, they're talking about 6 different ways. That was probably going to be newspapers at the time. Today, if we're sticking with that rule of 6, and I've heard it everywhere from 6 to 17 different impressions that you need to make on folks before they make a purchase decision. And I think, of course, that depends a lot on what it is you're selling, and the sales cycle, whether it's a short one, long one. It's probably on the longer side for most of the folks that are trying to get somebody to switch from one broadband provider to the others. Whereas, if you're coming in and the only game in town for broadband, it will not be nearly that many. So what do those 6 impressions look like? We've got a social media post there. We've got a magazine ad, a banner on the website, outdoor advertising, maybe a billboard, your mobile app, a bill stuffer. These are all the different ways that you can impact people when you're planning out those channels. And it can be important to use all of those that are available to you as you're planning that out. We've got a worksheet we'll show at the end to get into that a little bit more. So as you're planning things out, you just really want to think about all the different channels for folks there. Jonathan?
Yeah, just real quick on that. People saying, "Oh, I didn't hear about that. I didn't know about that. Why didn't you post it? Here or there, or the other." I think those are valuable opportunities that I certainly always took to try to learn from them. Where would you like me to post that? What would have reached you? How could I put that there? And sometimes they'd say, "Oh, put it in the magazine," that we did, because I worked for a rural electric utility and we did the magazine thing. And I would say, "Oh, well, I didn't put it in there. Actually, it was this page, because I designed that myself. I did that, right?" But other times it would be like, "Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Community bulletin board. How easy would that be to have something emailed over to that community liaison and have them put it up there?" So those are really valuable ways that you can learn from folks if you aren't already doing that. But I'm sure you already are. But okay, so we've talked about why you should plan, a little bit about what you should plan as far as your multi-channel and things like that. But let's talk about how to really get into planning for a whole year's worth of content, so you can be more strategic. So some pieces of advice. First and foremost,
if you're not going to do the joke, I am just
okay,
in case, planning out your communications for 2022 seems like a pumpkin pipe dream. We've got some handy tips for you. I'm not pulling any punches. We're going with it.
Number 1, clear day planning. Full day, schedule it out, put it on your calendar. Don't let anything mess with that. Trying to plan in bites and pieces, it doesn't really work out very well for really getting into that creative mojo that you need as you're going through this. Really just clear out a whole day, lock yourself in a room, and grab the team that you would work with if you have that. Not everybody does, but interested parties there, folks that would be helpful in coming up with content for you. But just clear the whole day and schedule that out so that you can really focus in on it for a long period of time. Get that flow going. Number 2, the important thing you need to do once you are there in that room is to know what your goals are. Sometimes that's something where your utilities will set up, these are the things we're going to work on this year. This is our mission vision statement, maybe even to know what you're really trying to get across to folks. And if you have any goals that you're trying to hit, whether it's sales wise or program wise, rebate wise, for utilities, all those sorts of things are going to help direct where you utilize your time and your effort and your focus. So if that's something you have to come up with in that meeting, that's fine too. If you don't have any outside forces on you, but bring all of that. Know that that's number 1 focus. Number 3, create a list of messages. So once you know your goals, come up with how you're going to move people towards those goals. If it's just engaging more with your energy efficiency, or whether it's driving people to your website, or whatever that is, things that you think will help get folks to take action on those goals. You'll need that sort of list of important messages that are there. And there may be some other things also that are not geared towards those goals, but are more annual events and things like that we'll talk about a little bit later. But that's number 3. Number 4 would be to populate your channel. So again, at the end, we'll have a worksheet here, but those different messages that you have are going to go into different channels, maybe depending on who you're trying to reach. So there's some thought that may need to go into that. And if you ever had any questions or needed any help, we would certainly be willing to assist you with understanding how channels may work in achieving your goals. But those folks that are on Twitter, maybe more business-minded, more focused, are not going to read lengthy posts. Folks on Facebook, maybe more willing to do that. On your website and bill stuffers, right? You have to know the audience that is going to be receiving that in that specific way. So populating your channels would need to be something that's done accordingly to that. I know some utilities have created profiles where I want to get this message out to Jane and John Doe. I reach Jane through these channels and I create John through these channels, and you kind of create who's this message going towards, and then it helps you know which channel is already kind of created, if that makes sense. If you haven't, you can Google it, but profiling and coming up with those, we would refer to them specifically. Like if you send this out to these 4 people, and that would help me to know where I need to put that message. Something interesting, right? And 5, keep the plan alive. It's not something that you spend all this time on all day and put it in your drawer and then pull it out, the next year when you have to start planning again and say, oh, yeah, I created that plan. Now, I didn't really follow it or didn't stick to it. And things are going to change. That's not to say that, it's out and you follow it to a T. That's saying to have it out so you can reference it. I actually set up a time to where I would go and revisit that. So quarterly, I would take a look, say, okay, great. This is what I thought my plan was going to be. What do I need to change? What's happened? We had, like Teresa had huge, crazy things happening, rolling blackouts. That probably wasn't on her agenda to talk about. So how is it going to change? You need to keep that plan alive and spend some time also to update that as well. So it should be dynamic plan, not just a one and done type of plan. So I like to get that on the calendar.
It's a good clue. There are probably some things that were on your 2020 or 2021 communications plan that never made it to reality because of what a weird couple of years those were. So always have possibility there.
Yeah, so there's no crystal ball that's going to tell you exactly what's going to come up. You'll have game plans for your utility, that you're going to build stuff out perhaps, but it just doesn't always happen. So since there's no crystal ball, revisit it often, early and often, I would say there. So pin it up where you can see it all the time, reference it, use it.
And while there is a lot of unpredictability out there, I feel like to do your plan, we can go ahead and encourage you to start with what you know. We did a survey every year, every non-COVID year anyway. We host a Story Connect conference. It's usually between 50 and 80 communicators from electric utilities and rural broadband providers. We're scheduled for March 30th to April 1st in the Smoky Mountains this year. So we hope some of y'all might be able to join us. But we did a survey at that conference a couple of years back, asking folks about the events and the campaigns that they did throughout the year. Now, the audience that we had when we did that probably skewed more heavily towards broadband providers. There were a bunch of electric utilities there as well. But so the answers may be a little different because of that, but a lot of cooperatives in the room. So you can see that we asked them, does your utility host any annual events? Not sponsorship, not anything like that, but events that you host. Annual meeting was almost 90% of the folks did that. Some kind of Christmas event was about half of the folks in the room. And then if you look down there a little bit farther, customer appreciation event, the other on there, I think the majority of those said Veterans Day. But then also Halloween and some kind of technology in schools event were some things that some folks we're doing. If you're not doing those, maybe that means you're lucky. But if you are looking for more things to do, we're suggesting these as something you might consider when you're looking at 2022. We ask, what events does your utility participate in? So not necessarily that you host, but we did specifically ask in the question, this is more than just writing a check for a sponsorship. These are things where you actually have people there working an event or involved somehow more than just a cash donation. Local festivals are more than half of the folks who are doing that. Holiday parade was up there as well. On down the line, you see high school sports, county fair, we're up there. And then of course, fishing tournaments and 5K races. There were some other sporting events here and there, golf tournaments and some things like that. But those are some of the things that if you're already doing regularly, maybe that's something you build a little bit around. If you always do the county fair and you always trot out the same booth and the same promo item, maybe it's a chance to look at it again for 2022 and see if you can build that into a campaign that you're working on to try to raise awareness with one of those segments or profiles Jonathan was talking about. We know that high school sports mean high school age kids, which probably means video games, which is a good option for if you have high-speed broadband. You know that the gamers are a segment that you're after. High school sports is a great way to reach families through some option there. We asked folks, when did they typically run campaigns? And 100% of the respondents said they ran some kind of a Christmas campaign. There was a back to school was probably the second highest there. Customer Appreciation Day was also pretty high. Annual meeting, summer vacation. Interesting to me, there's about 30% looks like of the folks that responded said they did a New Year's campaign. And we know 100% were already doing a Christmas campaign. So that means there are some folks out there, even though they're only 10 days apart, a week apart, not 10 days, more like a week apart. They were running a Christmas campaign and a New Year's campaign. So maybe they just got to the end of their year and still had money in the marketing budget needed to use up. Or maybe that's a strategic decision for them to do that. So those are the times when your peers are typically running campaigns. And I was glad to see that not only when are they running them, but we asked them, when do they have the best response or the most success with those campaigns? And thankfully, the number one time that folks run campaigns was also the number one time they're seeing the best results. So again, the room was heavily weighted towards folks in the broadband business. So we know that Christmas and back to school are the top times for success rate when people have the pocketbook out, when they are making decisions, when they're getting new toys, new devices. That's a great time to get them to upgrade the broadband speed or to sign up for your service instead of your competitors if they get some benefits there. So that was interesting to run through there and look at what some of your peers are doing when it comes to your annual, your annual planning and your annual events for those. I have a couple of questions before I pass it back to Jonathan. A couple of questions for yourself. When you're looking at 2022, go ahead and I did not tell anybody in advance there would be math involved in this presentation, but go ahead and do some math on your anniversary year. So look back when you were founded, make sure that, the big celebrations or anytime your anniversary ends in a 5 or a 0. So that means if your founding year started with a 2 or a 7, you've got an anniversary coming up next year that's worth marking. So if you were founded in 37 or 52 or, whatever years that it is, go back, take a look, make sure, decide whether or not you have anything. If you do, time to try out the anniversary logo and some promotional items, depending on how big of an anniversary it is. You've got plenty of options there. But beyond just the founding, I would look back at some of your programs. If you're a telco, did you start offering TV service 10 years ago? Did you, if you started offering internet service in 1997, that gives you an anniversary for this year coming up. Go ahead and look back at whatever the programs are, whether it's a scholarship program, it gives you a chance to look back and see, over the 30 years that we've done the scholarship, here's where are they now? A lot of opportunities, not just in the founding of your utility, but in some of the programs you've offered over the years too. Go ahead and plan out your required notices. Broadband providers a lot of time have the CP&I. There are non-discrimination statements, lifeline notices, or other things throughout the year that you're going to have to put out there. So go ahead and plan when you're going to do that. And it's time to go down the hallway to the regulatory folks or the government affairs people and just ask, is there any legislation taking effect this year? Whether it's safety related, whether there's energy efficiency standards, whatever it is, if you can plan on, okay, we know now that July 1st, this takes effect, to start ramping up your communications about that in April, May, June, so that folks are already aware of it by the time it takes effect, you're going to be way ahead of the game and hopefully reduce the number of confused people calling your folks. And then hopefully if you're the communicator or the marketer, you've been brought into these discussions already, but go ahead and talk with the folks if there's any potential of bringing on a new program or a product for the year. So are you rolling out a new efficiency program? Do you have new internet speeds or new TV packages coming out? What are some things or are you getting into broadband for the first time? That's definitely something, the more that you know about in advance, the better you can plan for it. So that's kind of the internal things to look at. Take a look at those and think through what of that you may know or you may be able to find out is coming up for the year. We also wanted to provide some of these items to look at what's going on in the bigger world outside of your office. So next year is the 2022 midterm elections. That'll be in November. And of course, the primaries are earlier in the year. Depending on where you are, I know here in Tennessee, there's more ads and spending and buzz around primaries than there are at the main election, the general election, because mainly a one-party state. But that's also important to take into account when you're looking at the political advertising, because that's going to raise the rates and decrease the availability of newspaper advertising. It may have an effect on some of the social media ads and your digital ads. If you know that people are going to be bombarded with folks emailing and calling and putting ads out for their political candidates, it may not be the time when you want to do the same kind of things. If you're going to plan a big thing where you're going to call all your members to check in on something or to ask them about a new service, you probably don't want to do that when they're getting bombarded by the calls from the political folks. A couple of other things in culture for the year. The Beijing Winter Olympics are in February. Kind of snuck up on me because we just had the Summer Olympics, but those will be in February. And then I think the biggest question about 2022 is, can the Atlanta Braves repeat as champs for the year? I know that's something that is a big question in my house anyway, because we haven't had to worry about that question in about 26 years. So exciting stuff there.
I should let you have the sports page there, but it's a big deal. I knew I shouldn't let you have that sports page there, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Congratulations.
Well, yes, people from Oregon, a guy from Oregon ought to be able to appreciate how rarely championships come around. So,
yeah, Trailblazers are not too big up there. All right. Well, that's one thing that we do a lot of out here is watching movies. These are some things that could be interesting to incorporate into your, sales pitches or to be aware of, and people like when you sort of incorporate pop culture stuff that's going on. So these are some of the interesting things that are supposedly coming out this next year. I know some of them. For example, I think Andy Top Gun had been, you said, on like the past 3 of these, maybe it keeps getting pushed.
At least the last 2. Yeah. So I don't know. I saw a trailer. I'm excited for it to come out. I hope that happens soon. But so these are just things to be aware of that are kind of coming down the pipeline. And you obviously don't want to use content that you should not use. You can't steal screen images and whatnot. In that aspect, but you can play on things like with your campaigns, just funny hocus pocus. I think there'd be a lot to go off of that, but just something interesting that's coming out. Other things that are maybe more focused would be stuff like technology, that I think is where we would mostly focus on. So for example, the Ford Lightning F-150, that's going to be a huge game changer and a lot of interest in our more rural communities specifically, but I think just in general, that's going to be a big game changer for EVs. So knowing when that's going to drop is going to be something that you're for sure going to get information as far as energy utilities, get some questions about.
There's things like the Tesla Cybertruck. That's obviously very divisive, design, interesting things there. But Jeep Wrangler, Magneto, EV Jeep is pretty sweet. I personally like the Rivian R1S. They're touted as energy or adventure vehicles specifically meant, and they've gone from like the southern tip of South Africa, driven them up here to North America. Some pretty cool adventure stuff already on that. But just interesting things to be aware of for buzz reasons that you can incorporate and make your life easier when you're just repurposing other news that's relevant to your business, and being able to sort of hijack that a little bit.
Yep. And that's a good segue, because one of the things that we talk about doing is the possibility of newsjacking, which is where you may take something that's coming out in the news and you can plan ahead, and that when that F-150 starts coming out, people start seeing it, it's going to be things that people talk about. So not a bad time to go ahead and have a press release ready, or some content ready that you can send out to the local media. I have been a reporter before, and I know that you always have an editor that will say, hey, take this national story and localize it for us. So we've got this national story about the F-150 coming out of I don't know, they're calling it F-150, or they're calling it Lightning, whatever it is, the Ford's EV truck. And if you already have sent to the media outlets in your area that your cooperative is ready to help people with EVs, then that reporter is going to know, oh, I know what to do. I know how to localize that. And you're right there to kind of take a main news story, and like Jonathan said, hijack it for your purposes, is called newsjacking. And that's something you can definitely plan ahead on. On the broadband side of things, we've hit a point where the last stat I saw said more than 36% of Americans have at least one smart home item in their household. As a self-confessed smart home nerd, I'm bringing that average device number up significantly. But there are going to be continually new items coming out there about that. It's usually January or February where the Consumer Electronics Show is out in Las Vegas. So there are always new gadgets that come out there that people will be talking about. Smart appliances is one of the things that's increasing significantly in 22. I was at Best Buy 2 weeks ago and turned on my Bluetooth to try to find something to connect something. And there were 75 items in there that connected to the Bluetooth. And the guy at the counter said, those are all the refrigerators that are over there plugged in, and all the smart refrigerators are connecting. Health devices are another item that's expected to increase on there. When I was looking up, exciting new technology items coming out in 2022, I saw there is an $8,000 smart toilet coming out that can help detect signs of gastrointestinal distress. And then I stopped reading that article right there because I didn't want to know anything. I already knew too much when it came to that. But one item that you do probably need to have on your horizon if you provide broadband service is it's called Matter. And supposedly it's going to be a new connection standard for smart home devices. So you may have heard of the Zigbee and Z-Wave before as connectivity options in the home for the different smart locks and smart sensors. Supposedly all of the big players, Amazon, Samsung, Apple, Google, all of those folks are agreeing that Matter will be the new connectivity standard that will hopefully let the different devices on the different ecosystems work together. It's already been delayed once, but allegedly it's rolling out next year. So that's definitely something, if you have a magazine, if you're communicating with folks doing training topics, you want to kind of be thinking about that, because that's something that's going to be in the news for folks that are into smart home. Other technology topics, we've got about 3 or 4 slides left, and that's a good time to kind of remind everybody, if you have questions, feel free to throw those in the chat. And when we get to the end, we'll answer any of those questions, comments, or anything there. We'll be able to have your questions keyed up and ready to go. Other technology items for next year. Augmented reality is expected to continue to increase. That's part of the whole thing with Facebook changing the corporate name to Meta. There's some AR items that they're doing to be rolling out. Twitter Blue is a paid subscription version of Twitter, which I'm a little skeptical about, but it's going to be coming out in 2022, and people will be talking about it. So it might be something to have on your radar. When you're looking at e-commerce, the new trends working there, Instagram and Twitter are getting involved in those. Basically, I think the Twitter investors said, hey guys, it's finally time to start making some money. So Twitter is working on some of those things there to work e-commerce more into folks' Twitter feeds and Instagram feeds. And then lastly on here, Starlink and OneWeb is the Jeff Bezos version of a Starlink. It's satellite-based internet service. Starlink is continuing to grow. And it's an item you need to be aware of at our conference that we've got, the Story Connect conference coming up in March. We've got a whole session about talking about Starlink and how your fiber network is an asset that you can leverage as some clear benefits over Starlink, where you have that available. But those are some of the things as you're looking at next year that you can look for on the technology side.
Yeah, no, I personally have Starlink out at my house because that's really all that works way out there in the middle of the boonies. And I did get one of those smart refrigerators that you're talking about. Lets me know when my kids, have had their refrigerator door open too long. It like sends me an alert, and then I'm out in my office, which is disconnected from the house, and I can use my phone to yell at them through the Alexa that's inside the house and say, you should close the door now. My kids aren't a big fan of that, but I'm a big fan of it.
Well, Jonathan and I are both dads. And so for generations of dads, it's always been turn the lights off when you leave the room and close the refrigerator. And now we have these smart devices that can help us do all those things. So it's pretty handy. We live in an amazing time.
Yeah. The era of the connected dad. I feel like there's a campaign that you can do around that. I feel if anybody needs some help with that, I'll help.
We're on it.
But as far as planning, communications, content planning, hopefully, giving you some ideas, giving you some thoughts to process through. It doesn't have to be a huge, overwhelming thing. It's just, to sit down and start doing it, and you're getting a pace, and it all plans out, especially when you start doing those required notices and the different events and the annual things, right? It starts to fill up, pretty quickly. But it is an overwhelming thing, but we're bringing a dish to the table for you all. We have an ebook that
nicely done.
that also will help you go through that, as well as some documents that we have. So at pur.ebooks, I'll post it in the chat and stuff as well. But we'll have a link there that you can go and have a free download of that ebook, which also has the content in there to help you walk through it. Looks sort of like this for part of that, right? It'll have a calendar that will show for 2022 specifically, maybe some of those things like Earth Day, Arbor Day, things that you may need to be aware of. Where do they fall? When do I need to plan for that? That's always helpful, since those change from time to time. But
it should have most of the either broadband or public power specific holidays in quotes there, but the emphases on there.
Yeah, so hopefully worrying is something that you're not going to stop cold turkey, but hopefully this will help lessen that for you. Turkey.
Excellent. Well, I'm fully expecting that a free content planning guide, again, pur.coop/ebooks. It's got the grid in there where you can look through and kind of plan out when you're going to run things in which different channels. Free ebook at pur.coop/ebooks. And Jonathan, I imagine a free guide like that, people will be gobbling it up. It's been our pleasure to join you today. I'm looking through to see if we have any questions, and we had Erica appreciates our dad jokes, and that was really all the validation that I needed. So if we're good there. No, I think we're in pretty good shape. Again, you're welcome to follow us, all of the social media platforms at Utility Pioneers. Jonathan's email address on the screen, as is mine. Feel free to reach out if we can help with anything. And otherwise, Jonathan, I think that wraps it up. You have anything else?
I'm good to go. I'm hungry now.
All right. Absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining us. If you know of anybody that that missed the webinar, it will be on our webinar archive page. And again, the ebook is available there for your download. So I hope you have a great rest of 2021. We do have another webinar coming up December 8th, which is on communicating with people not like you. And so we're working on that, putting those pieces together to make that another great last webinar of the year before we launch the 2022 webinar. So thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.